What's going on, everybody? This is live stream 36, and the topic of the hour is the Army's new service rifle. So, for numerous decades now, going back all the way to the Vietnam War, we've been using the M16 and different variants of the M16. So, more recently, the Army has adopted a new service rifle. Many thought that this wasn't going to happen because it's been so long using that AR-15 style, M16 style family. But it does appear that the Army has solidified this and is going to adopt a new service rifle. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that tonight. Was that a wise choice? Yes or no? And we'll talk about the rifle and its capabilities and limitations, and we'll see what we got. So I got a very small panel tonight. Might have some guys jump on later. We'll find out. But going around the horn, first and foremost, got Les with Pegasus Tests. Pegasus Tests is his YouTube channel. Be sure to check him out. Les was a Marine, served in Desert Storm in the early 90s. He has his own tactical training company called Polaris Training and Simulations Division. He's also a master of logistics and has his own logistics company. Les, thanks for jumping on tonight.
Glad to be here, Brent.
All right. And last, we have the good doc, Dr. Christopher Larson. He's the original founder of the One Shepherd Leadership Institute, going 40 years strong. He's a U.S. Army veteran. He served in Korea on the 38th parallel, hooking and jabbing with the North Koreans from time to time. And he's an accomplished author. He's written many books on small unit tactics. Just a wealth of knowledge. Doc, thanks for jumping on tonight.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, believe it or not, that is our panel tonight. Just the three of us. So, hopefully it makes for some good discussions. Like I said, we might have some dudes jump on later. But let's kick it around. Les, you got the con first.
All right. Well, I feel like I'm in a pretty unique position to talk about this. At Woodland Brutality, we had a gentleman from Illuminate Arms come in, and he brought the new rifle with him to the match. And I had the pleasure of talking with him on the ride from the airport out to the match. And he told me a little bit about the rifle. And then, I didn't get to shoot it. That was reserved for Carl from an InRange, so he could do a video review. And I encourage everybody to go to InRange TV and check that out. I did get to handle it a bit. It is a heavy son of a bitch, but it's an incredibly well-built rifle. I think it will stand up to just about anything that the soldiers can throw at it. The full auto firing I watched on it, I watched Carl from InRange do all his firing tests. It's a very controllable rifle considering the power of the caliber. And that's probably where all the weight is coming from in the rifle. It's a 6-point-something by 51 cartridge, so it's basically neck down 308. It's on a 308 caliber platform. The M5 is basically the SIG MCX scaled up to that cartridge. It's designed to be run most of the time with a suppressor. It's designed to have a lot of velocity. Matter of fact, the Army intends to field 2 rounds with it, one a training round, which is what will be available on the civilian market. And any YouTube testing you see on this rifle is done with the training round that's available. And then there's a full power round that has a bimetal case that's stainless steel and brass. And the reason they had to do that is this round at full power generates 80,000 PSI in the chamber, which is just phenomenal. So clearly, this rifle is designed to put out a very flat shooting, heavy round. And the one thing I hear from everybody is that it's about defeating body armor. But they call it the next generation squad weapon because also there's a machine gun component to that. And I can't speak too much to that. I have handled a couple of the variants, but I'm under NDAs, so I'm not exactly sure how much I can say about what I've done with them. But that is unique in the fact that of all the different machine gun variants out there from the different people in the contest, they're all extremely lightweight. And what I mean is you have a weapon firing a cartridge somewhere in the size of a 308 caliber cartridge, weighing significantly less than an M249 saw. And that's pretty revolutionary. The rifle, on the other hand, is probably actually heavier than an M1 Garand. So that is definitely a step back. And with its very bulky and heavy ammunition, the soldier is going to be carrying a heck of a lot less as a base load than he does with his M4.
Okay, we'll break into, we have time to get into some of the specifics that Les has already started us down that path. I think we need to talk about each and every one of those, and I'm certainly willing to look at the pros and cons of every metric we want to discuss tonight. I'll say this. This is an iPhone 6. I got it in 2015. It was my first smartphone because I'm an archaic dinosaur. But I walked out of the cave, I put down my charcoal pencil, walked out of the cave, and in 2015, got a smartphone, iPhone 6. So yesterday, we're off in the mall there in Arlington, and my wife is at the iPhone, Apple store, and she's looking going, she has an iPhone 11 now, and she's looking over there at the iPhone 13, and she's like, hey, why don't we replace your iPhone 6 with an iPhone 13? And she starts showing me all the wonderful attributes of an iPhone 13, and it is wonderful. I mean, it does things that mine couldn't dream, to do. And it has better space and better this and bigger that and bigger this. And so in many ways, I could see why having an iPhone 13 was desirable, maybe. So I asked the simple question, what's wrong with this one? What is this one not doing that one will do for me? What is it that I need this phone to do? My wife just looks, she shakes her head and she says, I don't know, it's newer. Oh, well, that doesn't do anything for me. So now you have to you have to justify the cost, and not just the cost in dollars and cents of the upteen zillion, okay, I'm going to tell my daughter she can't go to, one of my daughters, hey, sorry, you don't go to college this semester, so I can buy an iPhone 13 for crying out loud. And there are costs. There is the pain in the butt of moving all of my information and all of that stuff. And I'm just like, really? For the only justification that it's newer? So AR-15 came out in 1959, 63 years ago. Is that 63? It is. And the United States military, of course, the British military adopted it almost instantly. They used it first, the British SAS in Burma. Or was it Singapore? I can't remember now. Anyway, point is,
Marines in Borneo.
Yeah, there you go. And so, thanks, Les. And so they used it first. And then, of course, the United States Air Force got into it in 64, and the Army and the Marines quickly followed suit. And so we've been using it for 58 years. Does that mean it's perfect? Well, that means it's perfect. No, it means we've used it for 68 years, or 58 years. But for 58 years, or most of that time, I've been hearing how it's garbage. AR-15 is underpowered, can't do this, can't do that. It's a poor design. It's made by Mattel. It's made by the poorest. It's the cartridge is wrong. I've heard the mouse gun berated for all of my life. And it is the longest serving battle rifle in one model or another. The longest serving battle rifle in American history, actually outpacing the Brown Bess, if you can believe that. So it's it is an open sourced weapon system once its patents all died out. And now it is just like the world over builds the newest, latest, greatest version and morphs it to do whatever it wants to do. And so it's going to be very, very difficult to beat the ergonomics of an AR-15. And oh, by the way, the M5 is an AR. I know that's just going to hurt people's feelings. So I'm going, all right, it's a solid looking AR-15 in a different caliber. Don't know what kind of gas system. It's probably one of those stupid piston systems, which can't stand, and they're terrible and they're breaking. The Germans messed up that whole thing. And so we can get into that too, if you want to, how bad the M27 is and what a disaster and disappointment it's been. But the M5 is promising to be an equal disaster. That's from where I can sit. And it's for the same reason that my wife couldn't answer, why do I need a new phone? Because it's new. All right.
All right. So one thing I would like to hear from somebody is whether or not the Marine Corps is going to adopt this rifle, because I haven't seen or heard anything about that happening. And as far as I can tell, we're still trying to completely outfit the Marine Corps with the IAR as the primary service rifle. That hasn't come to fruition yet. There's still plenty of M4 still in service in the Marine Corps. So I can't see us adopting a new service rifle when the last rifle that we adopted years ago still hasn't been fully implemented. Watching the comments, I've seen a lot of interesting comments that I definitely want to point out if I can find some of them. Let's see, going up. Okay, here we go. This one I thought was interesting. Had a good point. He says soldiers won't be carrying less combat load. Army brass won't allow that. They'll just make them carry more. Okay, so obviously we got a heavier rifle, heavier ammunition, magazines carry less, right? 20. Somebody else put in there that this new rifle is essentially a new M14 for our era, right? Because 20 round magazines, larger caliber ammunition, and going back to what this person said, it's like, you look back to what a soldier or Marine should carry in terms of weight. They established that years ago, and Doc can talk at length about that. And over the years, that has just been like, nah, we don't care about that. We've just been piling on more and more shit, right? As the technology has gotten more advanced, NVGs. Well, now that we have NVGs, we need PECs on our rifles. So, piling on more and more gear. You're not taking any gear away. You're not, we're picking this up and losing that. We've just been adding on over the last decades onto the infantryman's kit. So going back to what that gentleman was saying, yeah, you got your standard combat load, 210 rounds, 7 magazines of 5.56. Well, I'm going to be hard pressed to believe that, when it comes time, they're going to say, okay, our guys are going to be stepping off with less ammunition, to accommodate the weight. I feel like they're probably still going to be stepping off with 210 rounds with added pounds. So anyway, that is my 2 cents right now, and let's open it up to the panel and kick this around.
Well, I'll jump onto that because I do want to talk about it. Look, guys, the innovation in the last 40 years has all been ammunition. It's been ammunition, hasn't been firearm. We haven't seen a true firearm. Okay, with the exception in the 1980s of polymer handguns, but handguns aren't infantry weapons. Sorry, I know. They're just not. They're not. They're paperweights. They're just showpieces. Bayonet is an infantry weapon, not a handgun. Anyway, so other than polymer guns in the 1980s, the last innovation was the Sturmgewehr 43. As it indicates, produced in the early 1940s. That's the last innovation. It really is the first incantation of a modern select fire, smaller caliber cartridge, high capacity box, detached magazine, blah, 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 blah. But you guys know what I'm saying. And that's the Sturmgewehr. But look at the M1 Garand, since Brent brought it up and you're reading something because you got a funny look on your face. But so he brought up the M1 Garand, and the story goes that Garand couldn't get the Army to adopt his M1 Garand for like a decade or more because he couldn't get it below 10 pounds unloaded, right? He couldn't get it below 10 pounds. He finally figured it out, and that's when the Army said, yeah, we'll do it. And there was some really dumb mistakes. We can talk about that in another time, about the whole M1 Garand. Could have been far more successful than it was, and it was a very successful battle rifle. I don't want to take away anything from that weapon system. Just fantastic. But it came in at 10 pounds, and that was considered just excessively heavy. By comparison, the M16A1 is what, 6.4 pounds unloaded? It's fun to watch guys who are so used to carrying M4s with everything on it pick up my M16 and accidentally throw it over their shoulder. Whoops, the hell was that? I thought it was a real gun. That was just a piece of plastic. No, that's called an M16A1 20-inch barrel. They just happen to be lighter than your tiny little carbines. And so this is what we're going for. The whole, what would Stoner do, right? You're going for a light battle rifle, except we aren't. We're going for a 13.5 pound battle rifle. Look, I get what Les is saying, and people are trying to say, yeah, look, this battle rifle is basically a 308, and it's lighter than a M249 saw. No kidding. It's lighter than a crew-served weapon system. You don't say. No, it can't be true. A weapon system designed to be carried by 3 warriors, and this one weapon system is only too heavy for 1 warrior? Hallelujah, success. What?
Yeah, if they're doing it just to defeat body armor, this is the wrong answer, because in the technological race, body armor will have outpaced this rifle before it's fully fielded. From our chance of getting to handle it at Woodland Brutality, it's an expensive rifle. It's by SIG. It ain't cheap. It's incredibly well built with a lot of craftsmanship. From what I understand, there's supposed to be an optic that goes on top of it that does everything but make your rack for you, apparently. So that's going to add weight to it. And then the question comes up, you have this rifle, it has 2 types of ammunition, one for training and one for battle. Well, which is the rifle going to be zeroed to? This super duper scope, how often is it going to get to be used? And then how often are we going to go out and train with this, and who gets this rifle? And on top of this, are we going to have the exact same problem we have with the M1 Garand, which we give our infantrymen the battle rifle, and all the support people are going to get a new submachine gun we have to have? And did the M4 just become the M1 carbine?
Yeah, man, that's exactly it. What have we done here? I'm trying to get to a single cartridge platoon. And I know it's probably never going to happen. There are good counter arguments to this. But I'll tell you what. Yeah, right. M27 is almost 15 pounds now. Jesus, mother of God. That's about World War II. That would not have been acceptable. Today, that should be a sin. Someone should go to prison for that. I'm not joking. Someone should be in prison for that. All right. But here's my thing. You get this M5, and look, I don't think any of us have enough data, and what data we have seen about how the M5 performs, it's glorious. I mean, this thing, come on, it's a big bullet. It's like a 308 only better. And, so it's glorious. I get the statistics on it are punch right through both plates. It, I don't know. It made me a sandwich at the 600-meter yard. Whatever. I mean, it can actually tell you when cantaloupe is ripe from 1,200 meters. Okay. That's great. I'm sure it's great if I'm a fruit farmer. No, I hear it's wonderful. I'm not joking. I hear nothing but good things, except 2 things: heavyweight and a different cartridge. Because in a protracted fight, I've got my platoon, I've got my squad, I've got 1 DMR, and he's got special duper super snowflake bullets. And now he runs out of ammo in a protracted fight. Weapons useless. Oh, I know. Let's delink some of the M249. Oh, that doesn't work. Well, let's give him M4. Oh, that doesn't work. It's useless. It's a friggin' snowflake. Get rid of it.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that one, Doc, because with the guys, obviously this rifle is going to be introduced to special people in the beginning. Clearly, it's going to be the squad designated marksman with all its whiz-bang gadgets, much the same way as the M16A4 was when it was first brought into the Corps. And it'll slowly filter throughout the squad. But let's be honest, if the fight gets that intense, there'll be plenty of M4s laying around if you need one. The other thing more interesting about this program is, I think, is the machine gun component that I'm getting around this, the equivalent ballistically of 308 in different areas. Some areas it's superior, some it's not quite. But it's roughly a 308 caliber round, and I'm getting it 2 pounds lighter than a saw. Now, that's interesting to me, and I'd almost be willing to say, hey, I'll accept this new machine gun in a different caliber for all that capability and just keep my M4s. But apparently the Army's not seeing it that way.
Well, I don't see it that way. Where's your quick change barrel? Wait. Do we mean an automatic rifle? Because this is a big point with me. If you mean automatic,
this is a weapon system. You're getting confused, Doc. This is a weapon system. You have the M5 rifle, and you also have a machine gun that goes with it. The rifle's ridiculously heavy. The machine gun's only a pound more and stuff. So there's where your trade-off is. The machine gun has got some interesting things going for it. The rifle, the price I think we're going to pay to have the rifle to have the machine gun is ridiculous.
All right, so here's my comeback. If you want to talk me into this cartridge, I'll say, let's talk about that. Because since its inception, the the 223 5.56 has been called the runt round. And I think it has been the Achilles heel of the AR-15, again, since 1959 and ever since. I would have hoped we went to like a 6.8 or a 6.5 Grendel or some kind of short mag where we didn't have to fundamentally change the shape of the lower receiver, and thereby, the transition would be easier by simply having new barrels attached to new uppers, something like this. But I'm not opposed to the idea. Like the M5 is an AR-15. I mean, it's an AR series as much as the, AR-10, right, is an AR. And so the M5 is an AR. And of course it is, because it's ergonomically smart. So there's that. Now, if you want to talk about a new caliber, let's talk about a new caliber. But let's also talk about getting back to a 7-pound weapon.
Agreed. From what I can see is the Army's concern on this is body armor and the defeat of it. And what I'm paying to defeat it with this round and this rifle does not seem like a good trade-off to me.
And let's think about that. Who's our number one geopolitical threat? It's the China, right? Mm-hmm. Russia is a distant second. And as far as I know, the average Chinese grunt doesn't even wear body armor other than a Kevlar. So, what are we doing? I just saw that they built a new aircraft carrier. It's like, how about we spend, instead of outfitting the Army with a new service rifle, why don't we just keep the one we have and put that money towards building freaking more ships to outpace the PLAN?
No, that's a great point, Brent. It's also a historical point, because if you look at your European world powers coming out of the First World War, every European power said, we need a better machine gun. And they put all their R&D into that. And you go into the Second World War, you get the Bren gun, you get the MG34, you get the Châtellerault, and on and on and on. What rifles are they using? Mauser 98Ks, Lee Enfields, still using Lebels. They didn't bother to upgrade the rifles because the rifles were good enough for how they planned to fight the next war. And I think you're exactly right. We need to be spending money on ships, not new rifles.
Okay, so here's my point on body armor. I believe and someone can correct me on this, but I seem to have seen this multiple times over my lifetime, and it always comes up pretty consistent, that 65% of direct fire weapon systems impact the extremities. That is, the arms, the legs, the head. The arms, the legs, the head. 65% of battlefield wounds are inflicted on extremities. That leaves the torso, right? Body armor right now, today, covers what, 60% of the torso at best? I'm going to be optimistic and say you've got 60% of this protected, of your torso, not even 100%. So my way of defeating body armor is don't hit the body armor. Jesus Christ, head shots, leg shots, arm shots, groin shots are fatal. Gut shots, getting shot in the big toe, when you're still 200 meters from the enemy, you've given the enemy the reason to quit. And that's what they want in a full-on charge. 200 meters away, I've hit them in the toe. They've given them a reason to quit. At 20 meters, oh no, you shot him twice in the back and it hit both times at his body armor, knocking the wind out of him, putting him on the ground, and allowing me to shoot him 4 more times. You know what? You know what's a great body armor defeater? A shotgun. A shotgun. But double up butt. Get that through the groin and through the legs and see if you don't bleed out and crumple like a house of cards. Come on. I don't need that. Solving a problem I don't have. This M5 is solving a problem I've never experienced as a squad leader, platoon sergeant. It's just not a problem I ever had.
Well, there, I had Brent highlight this comment here because here's a big one right there. Let's look at all of American history and small arms acquisition programs and stuff. Other than the possible adoption of the 1911 and the 1919 A4, every single American small arms acquisition program has been wrought with corruption. in one form or another. Now, sometimes, like in the case of Beretta versus SIG for the adoption of the M9, two great pistols, it didn't matter who won. And yes, they're both great pistols, and all the people whining that one's better than the other, that's like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. But yeah, look at the M17. It's not even a fully tested pistol because the Army truncated the tests early. This rifle, you got to ask that question about who are SIG's political donors, because there's probably a bit more going on than just how well this rifle performs or what it's supposed to do.
Agreed. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this one, but I do want to say that you're right. That's exactly what I wonder, Les, is one of two things. What general who's never pulled a day of, hasn't even fought with a Nerf gun, and a general officer, probably from the Air Force or the Navy, making a decision that some senator said, I can make all sorts of money off of that. And I suspect, why not be cynical about these things? I don't believe our government is smart enough to have a conspiracy, but I do believe in their incompetence and greed. Now, as David Reed said, the body armor protects you, from those fatal shots through the heart and chest and stuff like this. That's what, and hopefully your brain pan there. We're getting better at protecting that. So it's a fatal shot, right? It's not. It doesn't protect you from incapacitating shots. So what are we trying to do? We're like, oh, okay, well then we're not happy with incapacitating them. We now have to kill them. Well, all right. If that's what you want to do, get your old cheap ass buck knife and just walk up there and slice their throat after you've hit them several times in the body armor and knock them out. Right? Sure, it's a war crime, but how is making sure their body armor doesn't work to save a wounded, incapacitated person's? Oh, well, let's make sure their body armor doesn't work and we kill them. I guess I'm okay with terrorists, but for uniformed warriors from other countries, I don't know. I have too much in common with them. I'd really rather not kill them if we can save them. I just want to take them out of the fight. So yeah, that whole thing kind of, you're going to go through their body armor. And I go back to what Les said. No, you're not. The minute that round goes through body armor, someone's going to make other body armor. And then we're going to be stuck with a 13.5 pound piece of crap to lug around.
Hey, Mike, welcome on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah,
guys
sorry I was a little late to getting in here, but I had some stuff I had to wrap up on. So,
you guys don't know Mike. He's with the YouTube channel Small Team Supply. He's also an instructor at One Shepherd Leadership Institute. So, you want to jump in this conversation, man?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what ground you covered, but I got a couple ideas. Maybe you already touched on it. But this rifle, in a lot of ways, is retro. This is the M14. This is the M1 rifle. This is ground that's already been covered. The testing and everything has already been done. And I would say, hey, if you're having problems with your M16 right now, maybe you need to stick a 20-inch or more barrel on it. Get the velocity that way, right?
What? That's madness, man. Madness.
Yeah, right. And then on top of it, the X-16, man, it's great for rapid fire, putting down lots of rounds and concessive rapid concession. So, okay, yeah, you got a plate on, right? Well, that's only if the guy's good enough to shoot you in the plate. You put enough rounds down the range on the guy, you're going to hit some chinks in his armor. Right, exactly.
Right through the throat.
Yeah. So, is this, I'm trying to rack my head. What is this going to gain him? It's like, maybe anti-material. Maybe it's the War of the Machines that we're gearing up for. I don't know. But
what? So we're gonna take on the Transformers,
the sex robots.
Yeah, there you go.
I knew this was going to come into play. I'm liking the M5 much better now.
But it's the old adage. We're always fighting the last war, right? Well, the last war that we have, where we had intensive combat, was Afghanistan, right? And one of the biggest complaints was, we weren't. Our engagements were at much further ranges, and our 5.56 wasn't reaching there with their M4 carbines. Well, So now let's say we fast forward and we're, I don't know, fighting the Chinese, the PLA on islands in close combat in jungle environments. What good is that, heavy freaking large caliber weapon? Well, now we're back to Vietnam, right? Lugging the M14 through rice paddies and in thick jungles. It's not suited for that environment. So
yeah, and I don't know if you guys touched on this yet or not, but with all combat roles open to all genders, does this heavier weapon gain us any capability as far as being able to utilize the fair sexes in a combat role, if that's something that they're looking at trying to do?
That's went there.
Amazing. What a segue. We should have put those conversations together.
Oh my God, let's go back to the sex robots. No, but hold on, but let's talk about that, because Afghanistan, you're right. The range where battles were initiated were between 300 and 600 meters, very commonly. What commonly opened them were a lobbing of RPGs, for crying out loud. And they were, answered with our Mark 19s and 50 cals. I mean, look, I guess what I'm saying is two things. One, you're right. That is pushing the limit of our battle rifles. Okay. Number two, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I want the enemy to engage me from a range that makes sense to keep A-10s in our inventory. I want MLRS rocket launchers flying in to the point where their smoke screens block my sunburn. Okay. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. That whole mountain range has just been reduced to rubble. That's what I want. If an enemy is dumb enough to engage you from places where you can call in close air support and artillery strikes and not even be danger close, how is this not an enormous win? Just because the United States military wanted to pretend that there was no war going on in Afghanistan and didn't want to use those weapon systems doesn't mean that we don't have them at our beck and call. And we have them in spades, guys. We have this plentiful. So how about we let the artillery guys join in on the fight? What do you say? Come on, we could share. Because I'll take a 155 over anything the enemy's got in way of small arms. I'm going to win with 155s raining in on them. Brent, this kind of, actually, now I think about it, you just took over as sergeant major of an artillery unit. And what's the range on those rocket launchers you're working there? Is that declassified yet?
Quit throwing me under the bus, Doc.
I'm just saying, if an enemy is dumb enough to sit back, and the Taliban got away with it because of policy, because they read the room correctly, and they said, these Americans, they're not going to fight. They're not going to fight. So we can just sit way back and arc our AK rounds into their convoys, launch a couple of RPGs, miss hopelessly, and they'll go, road's closed. Let's go home. That's all they had to do. No one even had to get a nosebleed. I'm sure someone got a little bit of, maybe like a bunion or something like that climbing the mountain, but no harm, no foul. And the Americans went, we're done. Because our political, and I'm not making fun of the warriors there. Let's be very friggin' clear here. Now, I'm not even making fun of the warriors on the other side. I'm making fun of the corrupt, spineless politicians that were involved in that war. And so the enemy figured this out. They're not going to use their long-range weapons on us because they're pretending that they're not in a war. So, yeah. But my God, if China or anybody else wants to do this, please let them shoot at us from 800 meters away. I'll just have my platoon line up. Hey, don't waste any ammo here. Get on the radio. Come on.
Here's one thing I want I want to know is, I thought the whole purpose of NATO, well, one of the purposes of NATO in terms of like uniformity of gear and equipment was to have a common caliber, right? So that we could resupply each other. It's like, what's going on with this? Because I'm pretty sure none of the other countries are adopting this rifle or that caliber. So
No, but we've always screwed that over, because when we really shoved 308 Winchester 7.62 NATO down their throat, most of the European countries were still living off their World War II ammo stocks. I mean, the British used 303 into the late 50s. Most of the European countries were using 8mm well into the 1960s. And right about the time they all went, oh, okay, we'll do 7.62 NATO, and they all adopted their rifle, which was either a FAL or a G3. Just as soon as they did that, we went, hey, M16, 5.56. And
yeah,
when did the rest
absolutely
of NATO adopt 5.56? Going into the 2000s, a few were still holding out. The Germans were holding out. Your Eastern European nations didn't bother to switch until the 2010s, I believe. So, yeah, NATO's not going to follow us down this path unless there's a conflict that comes up where we use this thing and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm not seeing that, but if that happens, then yeah, NATO will sign on.
No, I agree, dude. I'm sorry, well, something else going on there, but I agree. I think this is fetishizing large caliber. That's what this is. This is some general officer and some think tank group went, no think tank group would come up with this abomination. This is some general officer who's fetishizing his grandfather's war. And he talked a senator into this whole thing. Hey, we'll put production in your state, your region. And that's what's going on here. This is as old as time itself. And that's what's going on. But you're right. We screwed over NATO so badly in the 50s when we went to 308. The Brits had it right. They were saying all along, guys, somewhere around a 6 to 6.5 millimeter. That they were insisting nothing larger than a 7mm. They thought that was too large. They were looking at, the German 7mm Mauser, the Arisaka 6.5. They were looking at several different examples, and they were right. We were wrong, and we shoved 7.62, down their throat. And oh, by the way, then we immediately abandoned it because it was a mistake. And then we went to 5.56. And it took 40 years for them to follow, but now they followed. So we're going to go to, I don't know, this bastard thing that just came up.
Yeah, maybe this M5 is the new UCP.
It's sounding to me like that's what it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it really does. I mean, it, and to all you guys' point, it's so wasteful. Like, we just got everyone on board with the 5.56. We got huge stocks of this stuff. We have basically the entirety of the American public on board with it. It has deep commercial roots now and everything. It just so wasteful, the juice just ain't worth the squeeze, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a use for it as in a squad designated marksman rifle. Definitely got some potential there. The machine gun thing, the M250 has got way more interesting things going for it, and that, I would suffer a different machine gun caliber. I mean, because basically we did it for a long time anyways, because how long did we have an M60 paired with all the M16s before the M249 SAW ever got into general usage? So we can live with two different calibers between our service rifle and our support weapon. And what this thing can do, just the weight reduction, the fact that you have a full power round in a package that weighs less than a 249 SAW, my God, why wouldn't we want that? Well, but as for the M5 rifle, I've said it before, I'm not seeing it.
Well, not only that, SIG got a really cool rifle out in the 338 Norma mag, not rifle, machine gun rather. That's the same size platform of the 240 Bravo, but like they were saying at SHOT Show, it brings the power of a 50 cal down at the squad level, so to speak, if you have that machine gun attachment. So I really think that's a lot more exciting to me. And then you're still stuck with the two calibers, right? The 5.56, and then you got this 50 caliber equivalent that's taking the place of 308. Basically, I'm saying the same thing as less, except I'm saying, let's keep the same size platform. Let's just give it a little more power type thing, as opposed to going down and giving it more power.
Weight is going to just be a motherfucker. I mean, and that's not just for this new rifle. Like, look at this M27. So, and the Marine Corps is going completely to this. Suppressors, low power variable optics. Guys, I mean, we got freaking PEC 15s on there, or PEC 16s. I mean, god dang, how much does this shit weigh? This is crazy.
15 pounds are what they're saying. 15 pounds for a rifle. 15 pounds.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. All the more that you start to appreciate the What Would Stoner rifle and what they've done with that. That's the direction the military should be going. You know, whether that in that current configuration could withstand military trials, that's what tests are for. But I mean, the fact that you can get that rifle so light, so when you throw on your pack and all the other garbage, now it just weighs like an M16A2, and we've already proven we can shoulder that burden.
What are the cool kids going to carry? Because I know damn well the special operations guys are not going to be carrying that service rifle. There's no way.
Well,
they'll get the tricked out version. The custom houses will produce a weapon in that caliber, half the weight.
Well, let's look at the people who defeated us. I mean, this is never a comfortable conversation to have. It's not. But let's look at their infantry. So it was a defeat. I know you say, I'm not blaming the Warriors again. I'm not talking about a tactical defeat, but it was a strategic defeat, sure. But Vietnam was a defeat. Vietnam is communist today. You can't look at Vietnam and say, that was a victory for America. No, it wasn't. The communists overran Saigon in 1975. What did their guys carry? Oh, that's right. They wore sandals and carried a simple, AK. No optics, friggin' light, no special, wooden, half-eaten, termite-infested, wood stocks. And I'm not kidding. They actually had cases where they were holding this stuff with bandages because the stocks were eroding and decaying on them. So they weren't carrying anything special. Let's see. Lebanon. Yeah, we lost Lebanon in the early 1980s. What were they? Oh, that's right. Just a simple, clean rifle. AK. Well, but Somalia. Oh, that's right. A simple, clean rifle. They were outrunning us. You know what? In Afghanistan, I just don't think that they were using many PECs and silencers and LVPOs on their weapon systems. So, I don't mean, let's just give our infantry sandals. That's not the lesson I'm trying to take away here, and nor is that what I'm implying. I'm saying their enemy, when the squad foundations of decisive force. Right. There was a squad foundations of decisive force. This was a research think tank that kicked off around 2009, wrapped up, I think, in 2012. And it said, wait, America has air dominance, not supremacy. Supremacy is when you have the upper hand. Dominance is when you dominate. Okay. We have air dominance. We have artillery dominance. We have tank dominance. We have naval dominance. We have air, information dominance, satellite space dominance. Why have we never enjoyed, not in any modern time in 100 years, have we ever enjoyed infantry dominance over the enemy? And they said, well, it's got three things. One, human factors. That's how we think in our physical bodies. Number two, it's how we structure our units, our squads and our platoons. And number three is technology. Well, they said, screw humans and anything to do with humans. Let's not even think about force structure. Let's all go to technology, because technology gave the Navy the asset and the dominance, the Air Force dominance, the tanks dominance, the artillery dominance, cybersecurity and net warfare dominance. So it's certainly technology is certainly going to deliver that for the infantry. Crickets. Where's the dominance, boys? You're giving us all the toys. Where's the dominance? I don't understand how the enemy can outrun us when we're humping 124 pounds and they're humping 30 pounds. I don't get it. What could be the factor here? I'm just at a loss.
Didn't you write a book on this, Doc?
No, actually, I haven't, but I should.
It does have light in the title, though.
We should have weighed everything, man. That's what we should have done. You go to CIF and they hand you something, you just pull out a scale. No. Hand it right back.
I always love going to One Shepherd where I can run around and fight with just load-bearing equipment. It's like, this is so wonderful.
It's almost like it was designed to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't have 4 sappy plates on my torso right now.
I know, and those crazy bastards who come to One Shepherd with all their sappy plates and everything, and we're all just looking at them like, oh, you sorry son of a bitch. Usually one semester in, they're like, I think I'm figuring this out.
Yeah, I've noticed that plates become empty carriers by the end of a semester.
Mm.
Usually
Yeah, it's
plates
definitely-
don't make it beyond the sticks.
Yeah, it's definitely roll to the fight gear. It's not walk to the fight gear.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I know we're straying off topic here, but just to throw this in, at the last Winter Forge, we stepped off and there was a guy with a plate carrier and he had all his plates in and they were like AR 500, like steel. And he had a big like gear bomb of a pack and it was, you know, snowing like crazy. And, you know, Mike can attest to this. And the guy fell out like maybe 200 meters into the movement. He fell out. Like we had to stop the whole formation until and strip his stuff.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah, because people, I've seen that in One Shepherd. People come out and they're like, well, this is my bug out bag. And I'm like, your bug out bag is 95 pounds? That's your bug out bag? And they're like, uh-huh. Like, that's an Arctic ruck. I mean, that's something we pull in a sled. For God's sakes, no one actually carries it. You're not meant to carry it. You're literally not meant to carry it. I mean, seriously. The combat load, sustainment load, all of it together is supposed to be 1/3 your body weight, not to exceed 1/3 your body weight. I'm 180 pounds. It's never supposed to go over 60 pounds for me. And I'm, and yes, I've carried well past the 100 mark. And it's moronic. Yeah. Oh, well. Yeah.
okay. So Les and Chris, you guys have both shot this thing. So I mean, can you tell us about it?
I haven't shot it. I've seen it shot. I got to handle the hell out of it. It is heavy. It's nose heavy. Now, it has a suppressor on it, but it still is loud, even with the suppressor. I mean, you still need hearing protection if you're firing it. Although I will give that suppressor a lot of credit. It's very good about vectoring the noise down and away from the shooter. Watching Carl from InRange firing it, you guys can check his video out over on InRange. I was standing just off camera when all that was done. On full auto, it is very controllable. He had no problem putting 3-round bursts into an IPSC target at about 75 yards. So in full auto, very controllable. So congratulations to SIG for that. But that thing is just freaking heavy. It's piston driven, so it failed the in-range mud test. But before anybody reads too much into that, that's such an intense test. Not many things get past it. Although a conventional DIAR sails right through that test when all the piston-driven systems do not. But let's be honest, for the way they mud that thing up, it'd be hard-pressed in real combat to get that thing that nasty. I mean, they're literally taking shovels of mud and pouring it in through the ejection port. So it is an extreme test.
It is, and so is the sand test that they do, where they're literally taking like a leaf blower and blowing sand into as you fire, so that as the bolt comes open, they're trying to shove sand in at the same time. And so it is a very niche test. It is a very extreme test. And in their defense, In-Range TV says this is not the end-all be-all of a firearm durability test. There's many other factors to consider than this, but that is their torture test. And as you said, while I think it's maybe not the fairest test, because it is so brutal, isn't it interesting that direct impingement AR-15 soars through that test? Just comes out like a champ when almost nothing else can. It's like a test designed by Stoner to showcase his weapon, you know? It's like, wow. Because AK don't come through that test. H&K G3s don't come. FALs barely come through that test. And, oh, by the way, the M27, colossal failure both times they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Eugene Stoner said his rifle was self-cleaning, he wasn't just full of it. He actually had something behind, some substance behind what he was saying. And, you know, I was thinking at the last Winter Forge, we stepped off and it was freezing cold, you know, snow coming down. But later on that afternoon, it warmed up. So we were getting rained on by the trees. Our equipment was getting soaked. And then later at night, it started snowing again. Stuff got frozen again. Now, one thing about my rifle, all the external stuff got frozen on it. Magazine release wasn't working. The charging handle, you couldn't pull that charging handle back. Dust cover would not open. Like all this external stuff was frozen solid. I actually had to take a Bic lighter and I just put flame directly to all these parts. And I got the rifle back up and going. My question is, if that was a piston gun, would it just been locked up because that whole operating rod would have been frozen solid? I don't know.
That was my father's big complaint at the Frozen Chosen. He was with the Army 7th Infantry Division, and the weapons being frozen was his big complaint.
Yep. And I'll say that in Korea, I got to the point where I know we stacked arms too for all the reasons you've heard it. Winter Forge, it's a great school, and I'm not saying they're wrong at all. They're not wrong. But I'll say that in really dire circumstances, we took our weapons into our fart sacks with us. You have another problem when you come out, you do. But when things got so bad that you started seeing the conditions that Mike is talking about, we went, screw it. Leaving it outside didn't buy us any advantage. So we would take it into our tents and our fart sacks with us. Because again, we were dealing with minus 20, minus 25 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And so at some point you're like, screw it. We did the same thing with our canteens. We did the same thing with our radios. Do you want it to work? Then eventually you take it inside because that battery isn't going to last. Those electronics are going to freeze up on you. So it's not just weapon systems that you're worried about, but yeah, I still think that's a great point. What I thought you were going to say, Mike, was nothing worked. So you pulled the trigger and then the AR goes, oh, well, now I'm ready. You just go, bam. Of course, that's not tactically sound, but it works.
The problem was I couldn't even move the safety selector. It was frozen in place too.
Oh, wow.
Intense. Yeah, I remember it's pretty brutal. I mean, when we're looking at service rifles, you have got to expect that this weapon is going to perform in these kind of conditions right here.
That's right.
That has to be a top priority.
That picture you showed, by the way, it's been there. That's like the sunny, warm part of the day, -5. That's what it was warming up to in Team Spirit, 1986. -5. That was the warm part of the day.
Yeah, another thing is I found out at Finnish Brutality last year, you don't have to get very cold for it to affect your weapons. Right around the freezing mark where we had the temperature during the day flirting on each side of that line, you get a little wet. I suffer the problem. Ice gets in my holster. My retention device won't release. Carl from In-Range, ice got in his Glock in the firing pin channel, froze that thing up solid, and it turned his gun into bolt action pistol. Doesn't take much cold to take your weapon out of the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, this is going down a rabbit hole, but you're right. As a matter of fact, one of the things we had problems with the machine guns is it would snap the operation rod. It will. It'll snap your op rod. And so we'd actually have to, guys would learn to just single fire it and go pow real quick on the M60s. Yeah, I'm dating myself, but they would go pow, pow, and they would go semi-auto in a fight for just like 30 seconds. They'd be semi-auto, just snapping one shot at a time before they'd finally let go a 6 to 9 round burst. The reason they did that was because if you just went right to 6 to 9 round burst, that second round, it snapped your operating rod.
Interesting comment.
Yeah, and that's yet to be seen too. If the M5 is going to suffer those same problems.
Yeah. I didn't look. Les, is it? Please tell me it is direct impingent at least.
No, it's piston driven with a long recoil spring. That's what gives its collapsible stock to it. No, it's not direct impingement. It's just they've gone back to it. And I can kind of see why, because it's intended to run suppressed. So you need that adjustable gas system. You can still have an adjustable gas system, DI, but
So
I don't know. I would love to hear the official Army line on what they expect to accomplish with this rifle, because it's got to be more than just defeating body armor. It's got to be.
Well, that was one of the things they did say as to why they went to the piston, is because with the Air-15 DI, the gas goes down the carrier key and then it rides back the charging handle and you breathe it in. And I don't know if some of you guys have shot full auto suppressed M16s, but I've shot some and man, it's a freaking cloud. It's hold your breath while squeezing the trigger. It's that bad. And maybe that's what they were trying to avoid. Now there's manufacturers out there that are already working towards adjust that. Exactly, Les. It's been solved with the charging handles. You got Radian, you got Geisley, you got a lot of manufacturers out there that have solved these problems. And it's like just another thing that they're stuck in the past thinking about things and they're not really current with the events.
Well, then I'll ask, why does it need to be suppressed? Why can't we just redirect? I get
what the suppressor does. The suppressor is 3D printed because the shape of the baffles in it, you just literally can't build with conventional milling machines. And it does greatly reduce the noise, and it does force the noise down range. But that being said, it is still not hearing safe when you're right next to it with the suppressor on.
Well, see, there you go. I'm all about the redirecting. They've got cans now that they don't suppress at all. They just redirect. You guys know what these things are. And I'm like, that is the smartest thing ever. So push the sound predominantly in one direction, and you ease up all of our hearing loss. But it's more than it is that. It absolutely needs to be a safety consideration for a career life. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's more, but beyond that, it has a tactical application too. As a leader, as a warrior leader, I can scream over the battle if everybody's pushing like 80% of their noise that direction and only 20%, 25% is getting to the left and right. I can scream over that and be heard by my, warriors over that. So this has got a lot of goodness to it. I don't have a problem with putting a can on it. I question the merit of, we're going to be quiet. What's that by us? We're sneaky. No one knows that we're killing, 800 men in front of us. They all think, wow, look at that entire battalion committing suicide all at once. You don't see that every day. It's not sneaky, guys. It's not sneaky. The battlefield is not sneaky. I don't know. Oh, but we all have to be sniper ninja SEALs. We're not. And that's not what a battlefield does. My God. Battlefields, when we were wielding clubs and axe to smash each other's heads open, were thunderously loud. Before firepower, before, gunpowder, they were thunderously loud. People don't die quietly. Jesus, give it up. You've watched too many. I hate to tell you, Admiral Humpty Frump, you've watched too many Navy SEAL Hollywood movies. and you bought all of it. And it's just not what happens.
Are you saying that Navy SEALs wasn't a documentary?
No, it totally was.
Oh.
I'm also saying that women, when they have slumber parties, all get in their pajamas and have pillow fights. And don't tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is some application, especially with skirmishing and things of that nature, but we're talking a lot more isolated engagements and special purpose than decisive engagements, large bodies of guys clashing. It's very limited utility, like you're saying. And I agree with your point, having something very small, compact, lightweight that can just project the sound in a different direction. And actually throwing that sound at your enemy is not a bad thing. So
Yeah.
I think you're onto something there for sure.
I'm shocked that they didn't roll it out kind of how the Marine Corps did, right? Introduce it as that designated marksman rifle, and then see how much success it has, if any. And then if it is successful, then implement it at the squad level with everybody carrying it, kind of like the Marine Corps did with the M27. Because I'll tell you, going back, I was in Afghanistan when the M27 first came into country. My infantry rifle company was part of the last battalion. When we deployed, we were the last ones to have saws with our automatic riflemen. The next infantry battalion that came in country had M27 IARs. And I remember at the time, the review. I know Doc hates this rifle, but the reviews at the time, from what I was hearing, is guys were drilling Taliban at 800 meters, sometimes plus, and they were super, super accurate and just doing phenomenal. And those battlefield successes are what led to full implementation across the infantry side of the house in the Marine Corps, anyways. But I'm surprised the Army did not roll it out like that, where you put it in that designated marksman rule so that it gets that practical application, and we get to see how it performs, see what its shortcomings are before they decide to go full blown. Because right now it's like, nope, we're going all in, 100%.
Okay,
and we have no idea how it works.
And that's the first time I've heard that. Right here, right now, that graphic that you shared was the first time I've heard that the entire United States Army is getting ready to make a $20 billion mistake. I didn't know that. So
no, they've been pretty upfront about that from the beginning. That's why I was asking earlier, is this the new UCP?
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're going to make a mistake, you're going to walk across the bar and ask the prettiest stripper in the bar to marry you. You need to go down in flames in a big way. I mean, do it in front of everybody. Make sure the president is standing there. All right. Well, you know what? Then here's one of my complaints gone. Now everybody will have the same cartridge. So one of my complaints I now withdraw, because if the entire platoon is going out with that mystery bullet, yeah, we'll all carry less ammo, but I don't know how long these fights are going to last with our elephant guns. That's what it feels like. It feels like some senator said, you know what was really good? I went on a safari. My daughter shot a giraffe and I shot an elephant, and we used this caliber. And I went, yeah, okay. That's what we're all getting, an elephant gun, because 5.56 too small to kill humans, by the way.
Gee, that would have been good information in 1959.
Yeah. Yeah. You think somebody would have told us, namely, you think the enemy would have gotten up and laughed. But yep, 5.56 do not kill human beings. They're not powerful enough. So when you want to kill a human being, you got to get something that can kill an elephant. And so it's just patently ridiculous to me. I think this is entirely wrong-headed for the tactical reasons we've cited, for the strategic reasons we've cited, for the alliance reasons we've cited. I think this is just an enormous mistake. But I will say that I actually am oddly encouraged that at least they're going to go, all right, everybody's getting this caliber. We're going to come up with a weapon for everybody, and you're all going to carry it too much. At least you're going to do mass punishment, which the Army is very, very good at. So
Hey, it's equality. They have checked the equality box.
there you go. There you go.
Just to circle back to something we talked about earlier is like I can't picture the Army being able to outfit everybody with this rifle. There's no way. I mean, the Army was still had M16A2 service rifles in its inventory probably until recent years when you look back to maybe some of the Reserve or National Guard units. So there's going to be M16s, M4 still in Army inventory, right? And every year or every other year, I find myself watching the Band of Brothers series over, just because it's such a great series. And I'm reminded of the scene where they're pushing towards Bastogne, and they didn't have not only did they not have enough cold weather equipment, the right type of cold weather equipment, they didn't have enough ammunition. And so as they're pushing forward, they're meeting the units that are falling back from the German offensive, and they're like, "Hey, can I get that? Can I get some ammo from you? Can I get your grenades? Can I get your bandoliers?" And they're passing this ammunition off. You can't tell me that all those guys go in the opposite direction. We're all infantry guys. So if like you run into that scenario again, hey, the Chicom's just launched a mass offensive. We got dudes coming this way, and we got guys going this way, and they're not. These guys going this way aren't prepared fully. They're going to be passing off ammunition. Well, okay, well, shit, I got this fucking rifle. I guess I'm going to need your M4 going over there, man, because I don't have enough ammunition to sustain this fight. Like the supply issue alone with this ammunition and the 5.56 and all that other stuff, it's just going to be a pain in the ass. I just don't see how this is feasible.
Well, that is a big issue, but it's not, because look in the Second World War and do a comparison between the European theater and the Pacific theater. When the Army goes ashore on Operation Torch in North Africa in November of 1942, look at the pictures. Everybody's carrying an M1 Garand, and the submachine gun is a Thompson submachine gun. Now look at the Pacific, Guadalcanal, 1943. The Marines are armed with 1903 Springfields. They're carrying Rising submachine guns. You look in the battles of 1944, Marines carrying a mixture of M1 Garands, 1903s. The Risings are all gone, but the Thompsons, it's a mix of the 1928 and the M1 carbines galore. I dare you to find a picture in the Pacific late war where half the Marines aren't carrying M1 carbines. So the mix of ammunition, considering every ammunition on that island came from a ship offshore, and yet we don't hear of Marines in Saipan running out of ammo. We don't hear of Marines in Okinawa and Iwo Jima running out of ammo. So it's an issue for sure. And in localized occasions, it's going to be an issue. But it's not going to be a showstopper like you would think.
Well, I just want to bring up one point associated with that. The majority of the calibers on the battle rifles you're talking about were all 30-06. The Rislings and the Mazdans and the Thompsons, those are all 45 ACP. The only thing that you got going is the carbine, right? The M1 carbine, because that's a 30 carbine. But that rifle was rolled out as a PDW for truck drivers, cooks, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't necessarily know how they got large quantities of that ammunition, but if there was going to be any kind of logistics problem, it was going to be on this tertiary arm. Right now, we're looking at this being a primary arm, where I think that might be a larger problem than on something that was less rolled out.
No, the point I was making is because the European theater was the prime effort, they had everything. They were very uniform across the units. In the Pacifics, the Marines were getting the scraps. You can find pictures of fighting in Bougainville in early 1944. The Marines are still armed with 03 Springfields. You can see pictures of Marines fighting in Okinawa, early 1918 BARs right next to 1918 A2 BARs. 30 years difference apart in their manufacture. Two different types of Thompsons, 28 with a vertical foregrip, and an M1 Thompson that was probably made the year before. The Marine Corps got the scraps out there in the Pacific, and so did the Army units out there, for example, too. The Rangers that liberated Cabanatuan were mainly armed with M1 carbines.
See, here, we got the M14 because of all the calibers in World War II, right? The M14 was supposed to replace all that, right? That was a lesson learned from World War II, right? And then M14 evolved into the M16, right? But the caliber uniformity was the key there. Okay, but now we're going back to we're gonna have two different calibers. You're gonna have
we're gonna have three.
Right, because the Marine Corps, they're not buying this M5. They already got their M27s. So the 5.56 is going to be around for a while at least, as a frontline caliber.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm
in
saying.
The mid-1990s.
All the pogers are going to have M4s and M16s still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, in the 1990s, in the Virginia National Guard, an infantry unit, I was issued an M16A1. It was actually probably originally an M16 because it only had a 5-digit serial number. Those lingered into the 90s. The Air Force, you look at them, they have original M16s with 3-prong flash suppressor and no forward assists. You see pictures of them using them at the beginning of the invasion of Iraq. So the M16 M4 series is not going anywhere in any of our lifetimes.
Yeah, so John Doe says the M855A1 is not around to be laughed at. Correct. I guess that was kind of my point. Going back, bringing this a little bit full circle, my point was, if you remember, I was saying, why should I change my iPhone at 6 to a 13? I'm not arguing the 13 doesn't have some affordances over my 6. My 6 works perfectly well and does what I need to. I am willing to, to throw the M16 away and the M4s away and go, okay, let's go with this M5. It's not a horrible idea, but it does. First off, it has many problems for the reasons we're discussing here tonight. So my question is, what is it supposed to do that I couldn't do with M16A1, A2, A4, M4, M4A1? All of these things, even the M249, these were all 5.56 weapons. If you want to improve it, improve the round. That's what we've done for 40 plus years, is improved ammunition. And, you're going to have to tell me what my weapon isn't doing. I think our ARs right now that we're issuing, the models we're issuing right now, are too heavy. They're too heavy at a whopping 8, 9, 10 pounds. This is ridiculous. When I came in the Army, our weapons were 6.4 pounds. 6.4, guys. So I'm thinking that's way too heavy. Now we're saying, oh, well, I'm going to go to 13-pound, 15-pound weapon system. What does it do for you? What do you mean, what does it do for me? It's new. That's why my wife wanted me to get an iPhone 13, was because it's new. That's not. Stop being a child. Whoever's making these decisions, stop it. Someone slapped this dude in the back of the head. Stop it. Stop being a child. What do you want the weapon to do? Because you've burdened people, a lot of people, potentially with death. And you haven't told me what it's supposed to do. But it's new.
My problem is it's not new. It's old. It's old technology. It's
worse, but you're right.
Man, I want that Model T. I want that 1950s 2-ton truck. The M16A1, the further we get away from the M16A1, the worse we get. Yeah, there's a lot of advancements. The Picatinny rail, awesome. The forward assist, awesome. The free float handguard, maybe, right? I still think there's advantages to the old plastic snap together ones too. So I really think once they went with that quad rail, start throwing the kitchen sink on it, like most new rifle owners, we start running into these problems. And then we're like, well, we already got a 13-pound rifle. What's a 15-pound rifle? That's like, dude, it never was supposed to be a 15 or 13-pound rifle. It's supposed to be a 6-7-pound rifle most.
I don't think people understand that the difference between a 6 or 7-pound rifle and a 13-pound rifle. They just friggin' hump one for 9 years of your life. Screw that. Hump one for a 90-day combat tour. You'll figure it out. Damn.
Well, and it's not just carrying it; it's the offhand shooting. When you got a lighter rifle, you can take offhand shots a lot more accurately because you're not engaging as much muscle to control the weapon. And that's what lightweight rifles gives you. It means I don't have to prone out and get slung up on this rifle to be able to make a precision shot. I can still take a 300-yard shot and get it pretty darn good because the rifle's light enough for me to actually hold it up there long enough to squeeze, to get that nice trigger press without my sights going everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sam.
Doc, this guy's all over the M5's nuts. He seems to be equating the rifle's weight with no optic, no PEC, no weapon, or no magazine inserted, and he's just going off about what rifle is 13 pounds. So if he can,
the M5 is Sam, because I've held it and I've had it out on the range. I haven't fired it, but held it, and that thing is fucking heavy. The tech rep that was there was going with 12.9 pound rifle. Well, that's pretty damn close to 13 in my book. And you add on this new super duper optic that they're going to put. I put my PEC on it, and there'll be some other device that goes on, a people sniffer or blender or something like that. The thing will weigh more than a damn M60 by the time its service life is over.
Yeah. Well, have we exhausted this conversation?
I think we overheated Doc.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that old fart, and I am an old fart, who says, get off my lawn, and it was tougher in my days, and everything was better, and all this other crap. I'm like, okay, you want to change a battle rifle. Hallelujah. Let's do it. I mean, this one has served for so long. I mean, damn, how many generations have you realize you have great grandchildren serving on this? Seriously, not grandchildren, great grandchildren serving on the same weapon system, as generations. And so you want to change it? Fine, let's change it. But what are we getting? And can we change it to something intelligent? And as Mike said, and so many other people, heavier is not better, it's worse. And older is not better, it's worse. God dang. Yeah, you're right. This irritates the living shit out of me because what bothers me about this, frankly, is the opportunity lost. We've got a major adjustment. Do you understand how hard it is, Brent, for as big as the Army is to make a move like this? It has to have some massive impetus because it takes massive effort and massive funding. And we've done it on a gimmick. A gimmick? I want to be historically cool.
All right, what else we got? I think we've.
Well, there's one other thing that I haven't touched on, and that's the ammunition, the bimetal case. You got the half brass, half steel. Okay, my question is, okay, we need the steel case for not squirting the primers at the back. Okay, gotcha. Why don't you just make it a full steel case? Because I'll tell you what, you got a chrome line chamber. It should work fine with steel case ammunition. We've got a lot of other weapon systems doing it, and we got plenty of other data with regular chrome line bores having no trouble running full steel case ammunition. So why aren't we just going with that lower cost option? Why are we have this weird,
I would say heat, because a brass case gives you two things steel doesn't. One, removal of heat. They haven't found anything that removes heat from your weapons better than brass. The second thing is, because brass is a softer metal than steel, it forms to your chamber and actually gives you better accuracy. That's why there's steel match ammo out there, but everybody knows the brass cased ammo is better.
Yeah, so, I mean, every time you pull the trigger, you have the pressure and the heat of the sun inside of your chamber. What were they thinking? Yes, I'm told it has a very smooth recoil, and why not? It has a sandbag tied to the front. And you better have a soft recoil because you only get 9 shots before you have to change the barrel.
Yeah,
the barrel halfway through a magazine. Jesus Christ, guys. And I don't mean like swap to your spare barrel. I mean the armorer has to come in and decommission your barrel. 80,000 PSI. 80,000? 80,000. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, throat erosion is a real thing. And I even heard it said that they're going to use full brass case ammunition that's downgraded, and as far as its powder performance, they're going to use that for training. So you're not going to train with what you fight with.
No, that is
oh,
definitely what they're doing, and that's all the ammo that's on the civilian market right now is that downgraded ammunition, and that's going to be training ammunition. So the most basic thing is you're only going to get the wartime ammunition if they ever issue it to you. So you're going to go into the fight with an unzeroed weapon?
Exactly. And, as you know, as a competitive shooter, your split times are going to be way off because you don't have that muscle memory of controlling that recoil impulse. So every time you train on that rifle, you're going to have an expectation of how that rifle is going to come off the target and how you're going to push it back on target. You switch over this new ammunition, you got to relearn all your muscle memory again for, offhand shooting.
That the German army did that in the 80s and 90s. They went to that plastic dynamite ammo. Do you guys remember that? It is a solid plastic. What's that?
Yeah. G11 rifle with caseless ammo. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's got this plastic bullet. It's good for, I think it's supposed to be a 25-meter range. It's just for qualification, right? But that's what they were training all of their soldiers on, except their top tier. That's what they trained them on. And when they finally deployed years and decades later, when they deployed to Afghanistan, and then they started realizing their battle rifles had problems because they had only used toy ammunition and never put their weapons through the works, and also their soldiers couldn't hit shit. I mean, yeah, right. You got training ammo that's different, has a different impact and zero than your yeah. All right. That's what's heartbreaking to me, not the change. I swear to God, it's not the change. It's that we had the opportunity to change to something of real value here, and we squandered it.
Well, unfortunately, I think the next gen weapon technology is still maybe a little ways away. We got to get that battery technology breakthrough, and then we'll have the actual something worth changing to. Look at this. We got the Brown Bess, right? United States' Brown Bess musket, and we decided to change the Brown Bess, and we're not even going to a new technology. We're not going to wheel lock. We're not going to cap and ball. If we were going to go to that caseless ammunition or something that actually had some really unique merits outside of just it kills on one end, maims on the other, I just don't I don't get what they're going to get out of it.
All right, let's talk about this. Interesting. Okay, so he says, I swear it's the same conversation I read about when the M16 was first came onto the scene. So essentially, obviously for those that don't realize, when they were bringing the M16 on board, you had all the old timers, which, a lot of us in here are old timers when it comes to, service rifles. There was a lot of hesitation with the M16 because it's like, this thing does not look like the old M1 Garand. It does not look like the M14. What is this? Polymers and plastics. And so obviously you had guys saying, this isn't what our guys need. This is going to get people killed. So is it that? Could it be that, right? We be just like, no, look at this thing. I would argue that's not the case because it's heavier and it's not, we talked about, it's not this great revolution in technology, right? There's not some space-aged material that's making the weapon lighter.
No, let me say that one point I do agree with Sam, and that is, yes, every time a new technology, especially one so critical, life and death critical as a firearm, the old guard warriors will stand up and say, is this a wise? I'm not sure this is the wise move, guys. this has been our battle implement, our main primary battle weapon for our, warriors for X amount of years, and it suited us through this conflict and that conflict. And they're right to stand up and defend the new guys by saying, don't do our new warriors a disservice. So Sam is right about that. But here's the difference. Sam, when the M16 came out, the old guard complained that it was 3 pounds lighter. What? 3 pounds lighter? That is good. The old guy said, what? It's a smaller caliber. Well, it's too weak and it won't kill humans. But they were wrong about that, by the way. What were they going to say? Well, it won't shoot 500 meters. It did. It won't kill. It did. It's lighter. That's good. It's reliable. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it was reliable. I mean, there's so many things. It didn't have more pressure than a 7.62 SAM. It had less pressure, right? Direct impingement had less moving parts and therefore made it more reliable. It could pass sand and dust tests and all sorts of, brutality tests that the M14 failed at and still fails at today. So the old guard was right to defend the new warriors. They were right to do that in the late 50s when they complained about, in the 60s when they complained about this newfangled AR-15 coming into service. I get it. It also had new materials that they weren't aware of. Aluminum and plastics. What are you doing here? So they were right to complain, but you are correct that in the end, they were incorrect. That it was a more reliable weapon system that was lighter with lower pressures. You could carry more ammunition and hit just as far and accurate. It was just as deadly, if not more deadly in some regards, terminal ballistics. And so it had this in spades over the past because it was innovative design and it was an innovative cartridge. And the M5 offers none of these.
Well, we're almost at an hour and a half. We got about 30 mics left. Let's go around the horn and open the table up after that. What, if not the M5, what should have replaced the M4 and M16 series of rifles in the U.S. military inventory? So we'll go clockwise and start with Les. Go ahead, man.
Well, I would not so much replace as upgrade. One of the things we learned about when the M16A4 came online was that ACOG was awesome. It brought a lot to the fight. I think one of the things the Marine Corps found out when the M27 started doing so well was it had this massively great optic on it. And they draw the wrong conclusion, didn't realize it was the optic bringing the capability and not the rifle. So I wouldn't so much worry about changing caliber. I would just be upgrading. One, lightening the rifle. A lot of what's been done with the What Would Stoner Do is excellent in that category. Thin barrels that now have the strength of thicker barrels did 20 years ago. Carbon fiber handguards, possibly making the whole lower receiver polymer, and then making the attachments that I inevitably have to have on this rifle lighter and less bulky, i.e. get my PEC down to something the size of a mini mag light, for example. Maybe make my integrated into the rifle, the power system for everything that I put on the rifles integrated into the rifle, and give me an optic that maybe does everything I need to do by giving me night vision, giving me ballistic computation, made out of something other than steel that is still durable. I'd probably be a whole lot more interested and get a lot more use out of that than what the Army's doing with the M5.
Okay, so what should they have done? First off, it looks to me at a glance, and I haven't cracked her open or anything else, that the M5 is an AR series weapon system. As much as I want to say the M27 is not, it is. But what should they have done? Well, one thing they should have done seriously is looked at the failures of the M27. And the failures of the M27 is there are a multitude of failures. But I think the most egregious one is that they put a piston system in there. No, I'm not talking about sand and mud. That was initially my concern, as well as accuracy. Those were my initial concerns. What turns out is that the direct impingement system is supposed to have an intentional delay in the gas system returning to the church key before it blows that whole bolt carrier back. And in doing so, allows the lugs to unlock. That's what the delay is supposed to do. Allow your lugs on the bolt to unlock. When we created a piston system, there was not time before the bolt carrier started pushing back that allowed the bolt lugs to unlock. And so what we're seeing is literally bolt lugs and bolt faces separate after X amount of use, 5,000, 10,000 rounds of use, that little. And we're seeing entire bolts separate. Now, this is an egregious sin against the very system, the design of the system. So the first thing they should have done was look at the failures, the many failures of the M27, and said, okay, we're going back to direct impingement. And I think the next thing they should have done, seriously, is listen to some of In-Range TV's What Would Stoner Do? Now, I'm not a disciple of What Would Stoner Do, because with any equipment, the lighter you make it, the more fragile it becomes. And so there's a point where I don't want to go. But with new materials, maybe it is possible. I want a lighter rifle, not a heavier rifle. It's a 6.5 pound rifle that we've pushed up to 10 pounds. I want to go the other direction. I want to get back to 7, 6, 5 pounds. That's what we should have done. The next thing we should have done, that's in the design of the weapon itself. The next thing we should have done is looked at ammunition. I'm okay with going to a larger caliber. Again, I've been kind of eyeballing the 6mm ARC, the 6.5 Grindle, and the 6.8 SPC. These are all short magnums, is essentially a way you could classify all of them, more or less. The point is that they are larger, they have better range, they have better coefficiencies of energy into target. And so we probably should have looked at leaving the 5.56 and or keeping the 5.56, which is righteous in its own account, particularly in terminal ballistics, keeping the 5.56 and looking at better powders and looking at better bullet weights and bullet designs. So I think we could have done a lot with this, to the point where carbines have their own rounds, rifles have their own rounds, DMR have their own rounds, and light machine guns have their own rounds, thereby having a single cartridge, a platoon. I said a single cartridge, single caliber, but every weight is optimized for that particular barrel length, etc. Yet all of them could shoot each other's ammunition in a pinch. All of them could. I think this would have been the optimal solution. And if that was a 5.56, hallelujah. If it's something bigger or different, fine. But I think that's what we should have looked at doing, is lightening the weapon, not making it heavier, and then also improving the cartridge itself.
So I think, yeah, I got it. So I think I already alluded to some of the stuff that I would like to see. And honestly, you're going to hear me echo a lot of the same comments that these guys just said, talking about, hey, let's look at the old M16A1, see how we can modernize that platform. The biggest thing that I have against the M27 and this new M5, in particular the M27, was exactly what Chris was saying. With a DI system, you blow the gas directly in the bolt carrier group. It pushes the bolt forward. It pushes the bolt carrier group to the rear. And when it pushes the bolt carrier, or when it pushes the bolt forward, it unlocks it, right? So you got the unlocking action versus pounding it back with a hammer, and causing all this longevity issues. The other egregious sin of the M27 and the M5 is all our logistics, not just our ammunition, but all our spare parts, all our armor tools, all our wrenches, everything, throwing it all out. And like we already talked about, this stuff is going to be in use for a while. So they're going to have, now these armorers are going to have another set of tools they're going to have to maintain this stuff. And so what would I do different if I had the ability? Is, like I said, I just look at the M16A1, give it a flat top upper, maybe look at the handguard, maybe change some stuff with that. Maybe look at different barrel materials, similar to like Les was saying with the What Would Stoner Do project, and just try to modernize what we already got. I mean, I think we got a great weapons system already, definitely good enough for our current fight. And, you know, the other technologies out there that I think it would be worth investing in aren't mature enough to go ahead and make that commitment. So, you know, like I said, the juice isn't worth the squeeze right now. And if they want a lightweight 308 rifle, you can do that with a M27 platform, right? SR25 platform, rather. You can build a 7-pound 308 rifle. But that being said, I don't think it's worth it. Maybe in some limited applicational roles, but the general issue rifle, nah, man. The M16 is the way to go.
All right, so I'm gonna take the exact same side as Les. Right now I think we should be we're focusing on the wrong stuff. You know, we should be building ships and other, you know, tools that are going to be necessary in the coming fight. I mean, that's with communist China, no doubt. As far as service rifles, there hasn't been a big leap. And hold on, our little porn bot's back. I got to ban them. All right, sorry. There hasn't been a big leap in firearms technology. Doc's already hinted to that. And you know, yes, the bullet is probably where we need to focus. And you know, that's why 9mm has kind of just dominated the market, right? Because of modern ammunition, 9mm has just, you know, brought itself up to the performance of those other calibers, and now most of those other calibers are kind of getting phased out because the 9mm is able to do what those other calibers used to do back in the day, just because of modern ammunition. So that's definitely where we need to look at. It's in terms of the actual rifle itself. Civilian technology in firearms is so far ahead of the U.S. military because of the process in which procurement in the military takes place. Right, it takes years. By the time the M27 rolled out, you know, that we had already moved past quad rails on rifles, and now, you know, they have M-LOK and all this other stuff that just makes the rifle so much lighter. There are ARs out there that offer the exact same capabilities that your standard issue M4 does, but it weighs a fraction of the weight because of the, you know, the different types of handguards and everything else. Like, there are solutions out there to modernize the standard M4 carbine. It's not going to break the bank, and I think that's what we need to do, guys. I don't think we need a big heavy caliber right now to do this magical, you know, penetrate enemy armor. What enemy is wearing this armor? And then, like I think it was Les that brought up, once you introduce that rifle, what are they gonna do? They're gonna make a sappy plate that's specifically designed to stop that round. So then you're just right back to having a heavy rifle. So we're focusing on the wrong things. If you look at the Marine Corps' M27 right now, the fleet infantry units that have the low power variable optics, plus a PEC 16, plus a suppressor, plus they're giving all the new fucking high cut Kevlars with, you know, electronic earmuffs and all this other crazy shit that's coming out. Like, guys, the standard grunt's going to be so weighed down. I mean, it's good. It's getting bad. It's getting bad. I thought back in, like 2003, 2004, with the interceptor vest and all this other stuff that we were weighed down. Goddamn, I don't know how regular grunts move nowadays with all the shit they're expected to carry. So anyways, I'm going to open back the floor up so we can kick this around, and then we got about 20 mics left before we hit that 2-hour mark.
Yeah, I think we're all basically saying the same thing here, is that, technology could make 5.56 better, and what the price we have to pay for this new round and new rifle just does not seem to be worth it. It's going to be hideously expensive. It'll be slow to introduce. like I say, introduction and everybody switching over this rifle won't be complete till after all four of us are long dead. It's just, and I don't see our allies adopting it. I think the Europeans are going to take the view the Finns do. The Finns keep recycling their rifles. They're still using their M62s that are 50 years old, because they think F-35s are far more important to their national defense, and Leopard tanks are far more important to their national defense than rifles. And I have a feeling all your European powers have pretty much come to the same conclusion, because you don't see them modernizing their rifles. They're buying new warships. They're buying new fighter jets. They're not out buying new rifles. Matter of fact, nobody is, if you think about it.
Our enemies are still using some form of Kalashnikov. And you know what? Like, Kalashnikov isn't even my second choice. It's like, I'm not kidding. It's probably in the top 10, but it's at the bottom end of that. Seriously, I'm not joking at all. Like, it's a reliable, decent battle rifle. And that's what we're up against. We're up against like the 8th best, and we're carrying, the first best. And so someone says, wow, you've only got the first best? Don't you want to go to the 3rd best? No, not really. I think you're right, Les. The point is we've misappropriated funds again. And since we're not going to do anything with ectoskeletons because they don't have batteries, or whatever, why don't we go to sex robots? I'm beginning to feel like there's like some kind of prejudice against sex robots. I'm just going to throw that out there. Or maybe I would accept the argument that we're just afraid that if we actually invest in these, that China will dominate because they have a lot of like weird, pervy men that don't like women and want to invest in sex robots. But I say we should work with the Chinese on this. I mean, because sex robots would carry heavier equipment for us. They totally would. They're very obedient robots. I'm just saying.
Last time we did a stream, we dinged Doc for not introducing the sex robots in the stream, and now he's just overdoing it. He's making sure he's covering every base here.
Damn straight. That I felt terrible when they said that. They were like, "You didn't bring up sex robots not once." I mean, I was just like, I was crestfallen. I was like, "What? How could I do that?" It's like forgetting you had children or something. Anyway,
he's just doing this so Skynet doesn't have the Terminator come after him.
Well, that's what the M5 is, like I alluded to. It's to take out the Chinese robots, or at least they should issue it to all the MPs to keep the robots away from our GIs and draining them of their energy.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't think of that. But that's what I'm thinking the sex robots would be great for. Here, you carry this 15-pound rifle and all of its ammunition. And then when I want to shoot, when I see a bad guy, I'll take the napkin out of my, my necktie and clear my table a little bit, have the coffee taken away. Quick sex robot, bring me my M5, and then it'll set it down on, on my table so I can squeeze off a few shots. Now, if Skynet is taken over and comes against us humans, I want you to know all the sex robots do leave stage left with our M5s. So that's probably a downside. We just have to recognize that. Then we're back to M16s. But I'm willing to take that risk. I'm just saying.
How about Gabe's point here? Maybe the M5 is for that, right? Prepping for that Skynet, becoming self-aware.
I would accept this as a logical choice for the M5 is shooting the enemy drone warriors. Unless the enemy drone warriors were super hot, and then I would say, what are you shooting at them for? Just going to point that out.
Yep. Okay.
All right. What else we got, fellas, before we wrap this up?
I got nothing, obviously.
I got nothing too.
Yeah, that's a hard one to follow there, Brent.
Well, anybody in the audience have a question before we call it quits here?
They're all following the same thing. Skynet, we're all going to be killing Terminators, DARPA dogs, DARPA dogs with machine guns. Okay, now I want an M5. Especially if the DARPA dogs have, body armor. And they would because, why not? How would it affect a civil war? With robots or the M5?
I understand. I've seen this comment repeatedly. So there's some people in the chat that are trying to say that they're trying to design this weapon system to defeat body armor because there's so much body armor in the hands of American citizens that you need this rifle to be able to punch through that. So that is what they're essentially saying.
Okay.
I think you're giving the U.S. government entirely too much credit there.
They're really not that smart, guys. I know it's disappointing. It is. It not only disappointing, but it doesn't help you sleep at night when you realize how dumb and how incompetent the U.S. government is. Worked for them for a while, guys. I know. If you haven't spent a lifetime working for the federal government, I've had literally politicians and general officers tell me, they're not capable. It's not that they're too good and they're too kind and they wouldn't have a conspiracy. It's that they don't know how. They're not smart enough. Look, politicians aren't smart. Right? They're not. They're corrupt people. And if they were smart, they would be able to hide their corruption, but they don't. They don't.
Now, I got to say, going for plasma rifles in the 40-watt range, I could get into that. I could buy into that. But the M5's not it.
No, I think plasma rifles are the thing. I mean, energy weapon systems. Mike, you've talked about this quite a bit. Yeah. The next big thing that we really need to invest in, this is not joking at all. I'm not making a sex robot, but it probably does apply, is energy weapons. Yeah.
It's going to be one of these emerging technologies. Either it's lasers or plasma or rail guns or Gauss rifles or whatever. Something sci-fi, right? That's what's coming down the pipe. And honestly, this is a big waste. We should just, hold out for this new breakthrough technology and then invest appropriately. This is, just kind of spending money just to spend money. I mean, sure, they're doing some cool stuff with the optic and, I get that. Like, okay, we can engage people super far away and the robot's we're not going to have to really invest in training. The optic's going to do all the precision marksmanship for us and we can just hand a conscript a rifle and it can, engage targets out to a million miles. Okay. There's some utility there, but that's not a general issue rifle.
No, it seems like this goes back to, I actually liked General Shinseki in the end. So for those who don't remember, he was Donald Rumsfeld's, head honcho there. But so General Shinseki in the end, I think really stood up and wound up being like a warrior's warrior. But before we were locked into the global war on terror, General Shinseki, he's the one that blessed off giving every soldier a black wool head sock because they thought that made them look special. Like the Rangers wore a black wool head sock that had no purpose other than to just be sweaty and give you fungus on the side of your head. So he decided that everybody else wants fungus on the side of their head and that would improve morale. So he not only gave them a black wool head sock, not joking at all here, he also decided that the M4 carbine, which had been issued to special forces and regular soldiers didn't understand that the reason they gave him an inferior carbine was because they weren't a frontline fighter and they were supposed to be operating radios or fixing bleeding or something like this. So they went, here, you don't really need a warrior's weapon. We're going to give you this M4 carbine. But the rest of the United States Army saw that and said, oh, that must be like the super duper killer weapon. And so I want an inferior weapon too. And so then they went off and they got inferior weapons because Shinseki said, look, if there's one thing I know to improve morale, it's to give everybody inferior headgear and inferior weaponry. And sure enough, that didn't work at all. But it might have worked in another time continuum. but it didn't. And and USGIs saw right through it and went, "This is a head sock, man. This thing's hot and sweaty. I'm getting scalp fungus, and this weapon is garbage." And so they figured it out, and morale did not improve. So here's what I'm thinking: rather than giving them an M5 to improve morale so that everybody thinks that they're special forces again, I think what you should do is first bring back the regimental system so that people are proud of their regiments again. Second, bring back the NCO clubs so the older NCOs can sit there over a beer and tell the younger NCOs how to fix the problems in their careers and, on the job. Third, paint the damn barracks, you son of a bitch.
That makes way too much sense, Doc.
What do you mean paint the barracks?
Stop letting the soldiers live like in squander, man. Actually plug in the electricity. I don't know. Make the air conditioning actually work. Stop giving them brown water to drink. And unless it's beer. I'm like, my God, the Marines are suffering. Camp Lejeune. What kind of are they putting in the water over there, man?
Well, I was just about to say, if you feel bad about your Army barracks, come check out a Victor infantry unit. Check out their barracks with their cinder block walls. And
yeah, you want them to feel proud of something, like treat them not like animals. Or give them an inferior weapon and a really sweaty fungus gathering headgear. That'll probably work.
All right, I think that wraps it up, guys. Any save rounds?
Nah, I got nothing, Brent.
All right.
Mounted fleshlights. Damn it.
All right, fellas. Well, that concludes live stream 36 over the new Army rifle. So thanks for tuning in and commenting. I appreciate everybody watching. We've held like 230 plus in here for the better part of the night. So it was a pretty lively viewing audience, to say the least. Plus, we kept having our little sex spammer come back over and over. I don't know how many times I banned that person. What cracked me up, I got to tell you guys this. What cracked me up is this guy would post like once or twice, right? And then I would delete him. And then I have all these people come on immediately like, "Where's the moderator? How come it's not getting moderated?" I'm like, Jesus, I can only move so fast. This is a Minority Report. I can't go into the future and like ban them before they come in and post, guys. They have to reveal their position before I can target them with my mouse clicking artillery.
It's going to be a couple more months before Brent figures out it's actually me trying to sell sex products.
Oh, all right, guys.
Okay,
good night.